very warm welcome to everybody to the London Asian Film Festival, the 17th annual London Asian Film Festival. My name is Vijay Alice. I know we are very late, but I have been reliably informed by the occasionally unreliable transport for London that the last train is at 12:37, so we have a little bit of time. But without much further ado, please welcome on stage the extraordinary filmmaker behind Dr. Afia Nathaniel. To think that this is her first feature-length movie as well. That's correct, isn't it? Yes, the debut feature. But before we grill Afia, just a very quick mention, as Afia mentioned before the film as well. The fact that we are all here supporting independent cinema, supporting Duktar, supporting the London Asian Film Festival. Ultimately, it is up to us to ensure that amazing storytellers like Afia Nathaniel continue to make movies like Duktar. Please, a real London applause for Mara Pictures. Mara Pictures, who are distributing the film throughout the UK as well. Right, let's get straight into this. Amazing film. I've seen it about 4 times now. First of all, you did mention at the beginning, 10 years in the making. Is that accurate? I mean, why?
Well, the first reason was, of course, there's a mother and daughter at the heart of the story. So that in itself became the hardest selling thing in Pakistan. It's a country where our cinema is normally viewed through the eyes of the guys, the male fantasy. There's no song and dance. There's no item number, no masala, no matka, no jhatka. So, it was a tough sell because I was constantly asked, but where's the hero? So that in itself became the fight to make a film with the heroine, and it took us that many years. But fortunately, my producing partner, Khalid Ali, he came on board and he fully supported, and once that happened, we just chugged along with this caravan of cast and crew and made the film. So
we will open the floor up to questions as well. But before that, the financing part. That's obviously the most integral part of the filmmaking process, I suppose. Where did the financing? There's a great backstory to this as well. Where did the financing come from? How did you arrange that? Tell us a little bit about that.
That took many years. I mean, initially I had optioned my film. I had given away the rights of my film to a production company, and for many years they tried to find money for Pakistan, but nobody wanted to invest in a country like Pakistan. Least of all the Pakistanis. That was a very huge, kind of a very difficult stage in our lives. Where after 5 years I said, alright, I've tried everything, I'll get the rights back and I'll do this on my own Pakistani style, which meant basically hustling and sort of cobbling together, various sources that became available, like smaller pockets of money. Rather than the conventional one big financier, we would go after several smaller, more passionate organizations and individual financiers, and that's how we were very lucky to win the Norwegian production grant, and that kick-started everything for us. We were one of the first Pakistani productions they were supported, so we were very excited.
How much of the money came from Pakistan?
Well, it's not just hard cash. There's also in-kind support. There's a lot of different ways of cobbling money together. Some people deferred their salaries, and so on. So you kind of very little cash up front. We made the film for very little. I mean, I can't even say the number right now.
But there's also an interesting backstory with regards to how you were inspired to do the film. Tell us a little. It's inspired by true events.
Right. The actual story that really inspired me was that of a mother from the tribal areas of Pakistan, and she ran away with 2 of her daughters, and that got me thinking, why would a woman do that? What kind of a courage would that take? What kind of a life would she lead on the road? What would happen to her? Would society even let her live in that state? What would happen to her? So when I started asking these questions, that became the seed for this road trip thriller, and I just wrote this as part of my film school, one of my screenwriting courses, and that's how the journey began, formally for this film.
Give us, for those of us who might not be aware, give us an idea about the extent of the problem in Pakistan, child marriage. Give us, on a daily basis, what do you hear, for instance, as someone born and raised in Pakistan, what is the extent of the problem?
I mean, for me, it's not just child marriage; it's the whole question of the girl child and the lack of opportunities that one is faced with. And if you look at just child marriage as an issue, it's shocking to think that 16% of child marriages happen in our urban centers in Pakistan. This is not just a rural problem, like I am told in Pakistan. Oh well, this happens in villages. No, it doesn't. 29% happens in the villages. Those are hard statistics that are on the ground. 16% happen in urban centers, which is counterintuitive, but it happens. So what happens to those girls? Where are they hidden? Why don't we hear about them? And all around the world, if you look at that, it's approximately 15 million girls given away in child marriage. So that's a huge and staggering number, not just one country, but many, many countries. And that's something that, as a mother myself, I felt very strongly. That's what kept me going. I really believed in the power of a mother's sacrifice. I myself come from a very matriarchal kind of a family, a middle-class family, and I've seen firsthand what those sacrifices women do, and they're often forgotten in society, even within communities, the kind of silence that exists around those stories. So I didn't want this particular mother's story to be silenced ever, and that's why I made this film.
And this is something, particularly from someone who's from another country in South Asia, something that fascinates me is there is a segment of Pakistani society who look at people such as yourself, such as Malala Yousafzai, for instance, and think that, and there's a cynicism with which they look at people such as yourself and say, well, Pakistan's in the news for all the wrong reasons on a daily basis. Why should you also take the worst, the most negative stories about Pakistan to the world? How do you respond to that? And what kind of experiences have you had with people like that?
I think it's a matter of perspective. You have a glass with water in it. Someone is going to say it's half full. Someone else will think it's half empty. And so people who think it's half empty might be coming from a different perspective or point of view, rather than those saying it's half full. So when I look at a story like this, I see the story of a courageous woman and somebody else. So for me, the glass is half full. Somebody else looking at it would say, oh well, she's brought dishonor to the country by making this film. So that for them, the perspective is the glass is half full. So there's no denying this. There's two sides, and it's not for me to say; it's for audiences to say actually. And it would be interesting to see who has what to say in the audience. But what I've seen in Pakistan is the film has played really positively. We had skeptics coming in, we had our fair share of critics coming in, but we've also had a kind of an overall embracing in a way of the film which I never expected. We had droves of people, of young girls, of women, even men coming to watch, and they really they really went away thinking about the film or the story. Even just the ending, people would debate, what happens at the end of the film. And that's what I want them to think about. Life is bittersweet. There's no closure, there's no happy way to tie endings to stories like these. So, just in that, I think people were forced to think differently and think of stories like this differently, rather than, presenting a happy solution on a platter to people. I think it's better to make them think about something.
And it certainly does. Now, before I turn it over to the audience, the locations, I must ask, they are absolutely mesmerizing. I think that's something that everybody agrees on. Absolutely. Tell us where you filmed this, why you chose those locations.
So what you saw on screen, mostly it's Gilgit-Baltistan, the first half of the film. Beautiful, surreal locations. Earlier when I was writing the film, I was thinking more of the tribal areas of Pakistan to film, but the reality on the ground was very stark, very difficult. We couldn't get permissions to go there. And I wouldn't endanger the lives of my crew, you know, in areas like that. So the only other option left for us was to turn a little bit more towards the northern side of Pakistan, which is far more desolate and far more difficult to shoot in minus 13 degrees Celsius. So when we went there, it was a time where sectarian violence had just happened in Hunza, you know, around that area, Skardu area. And the local security forces looked out for us. They actually helped us to come as a huge 50-plus group of people coming from Lahore, Karachi, Quetta, in the middle of nowhere to shoot the film. So they really went out on a limb to help us, you know, with everything. And the reason why you saw the film made is because the communities helped us make the film. We were very upfront with them. You know, this is a story of a Pakhtun family that has come here, and they're Faulkner, they're living in this area, but this is their story. So I just wanted to add that this story is in no way reflected or reflective of the Gilgit-Baltistan area, which is a very progressive area in itself. So the family which it depicted was a Pashtun family.
Extraordinary place, extraordinary movie. So, questions from the audience. I've already got a few hands.